Chuka barely had time to stand when armed security burst into the dining room. Nkem didn't flinch. She stood tall as they dragged him out, screaming her name like a man betrayed. He looked back at her, eyes wild, voice shaking. "You set me up. You set me up." She came close and she whispered coldly, "No, Chuka. You set yourself up the day you chose greed over love." But to truly understand how this moment came to be, we must return to the very beginning. Nkem was Nigeria's golden daughter, young, brilliant, and impossibly wealthy. When she shocked the nation by marrying Chuka, a quiet man from nowhere, love seemed to have finally softened her guarded heart. But behind Chuka's gentle smile hid a long, calculated plan. Slowly, money vanished. Documents were forged. Witnesses died mysteriously. Nkem discovered her husband had another life, another family, and powerful partners working in the shadows. What began as betrayal soon revealed itself as a carefully engineered war, one tied to her late father's business empire and secrets buried decades earlier. As Nkem fought back, the truth grew darker. Her father's past was not as clean as she believed. Chuka was not just a thief, he was a man driven by old blood debts, loss, and revenge. Powerful figures pulled strings from behind curtains, using marriage, love, and trust as weapons. By the time Chuka fell, the danger did not end. Instead, it spread. Threats multiplied. Allies became suspects. And just when Nkem believed she had survived the worst, a single phone call shattered everything she thought she knew about her father's death. He didn't fall. He was pushed. The call ended. No trace. No number. But one name burned in her mind again. Chief Asubike. She reopened her father's case, this time hiring private pathologists from Switzerland. The original autopsy had been doctored. The truth. He had blunt force trauma to the back of the skull. He hadn't collapsed in the study, someone had hit him from behind. It was murder. Digging deeper, Nkem found a shocker. The maid who'd helped her escape Chuka was once married to a man on Asubike's payroll. And that man? The estate's former gardener. His fingerprints were on the murder weapon. The betrayal was closer than she had ever imagined. She flew to Ghana, tracked down the maid, and confronted her. The woman broke down. "They threatened to kill my son. I didn't know he'd go that far." Nkem handed her a plane ticket. "If you ever want peace, testify. Help me bury the lie once and for all." The woman nodded slowly. "I will." The murder trial began. Chief Asubike, now in a medical wheelchair, was wheeled in with handcuffs. The room paused with tension. When the maid walked in, the silence was thunderous. Her voice shook as she pointed at him. "He paid for the hit. It was never an accident." The judge read the sentence aloud: life imprisonment without parole for Chief Asubike and 2 others. Justice had finally spoken. Nkem exhaled. Not out of joy, but out of relief. The chapter that began with a smile at her wedding had finally closed in a courtroom. Weeks later, the president's office called. Nkem was offered a position as special advisor on economic crimes and victim recovery. It was powerful, political, dangerous. But she accepted, not for the power, but to make sure no woman ever fell to silence again. Her appointment sparked outrage among political elites. Protesters gathered outside Oso Rock, calling her a threat to the old guard. But Nkem walked through them in heels and silence. She wasn't afraid of noise. She had survived worse than insults, she had survived betrayal. One night, an email came from an encrypted server. "They are building a new circle of shadows. And this time, it's not about money. It's about power." Attached was a blurry image, a group of men in a hidden meeting. One of them bore a striking resemblance to a face from her past. Chuka's father. Digging through old records, Nkem found what she feared: Chuka's family had once been tied to a secret political syndicate. What began as revenge for a family lost was now clear. Chuka had been trained, positioned. His marriage to her wasn't a betrayal. It was a mission. She submitted a classified watch list to the presidency. It included high-profile men with secret ties to oil contracts, foreign arms, and buried identities. Her list rattled Abuja. She was told to slow down. But she didn't come this far to be quiet. "Let the snakes hiss," she said. "I carry fire now." One night, her apartment was broken into. Nothing was stolen. No fingerprints. Just one item missing, the letter she wrote to Ebuka. She knew what it meant. Someone wanted to rewrite her legacy from the inside, to poison her child's future the way hers had once been poisoned. Now 10, Ebuka asked questions. About his father. About the world. About why people stared at them in airports. Nkem knelt, held his small hands, and said, "Your story didn't begin with pain. It began with survival. And I teach you how to turn scars into armor." Instead of returning to oil, Nkem launched a new investment firm run entirely by women, funded by transparency, built on clean audits. In its first year, it pulled in 2 billion Nigerian nairas in ethical profits. But more importantly, it inspired a generation. "We are not just building wealth," she said. "We are building safety." Late one evening, a man stood silently at her estate's gate. His face bruised. Limping. He said only 3 words, "I know Chuka." He handed her a small leather diary. He wrote everything down before he vanished from prison. He knew he wouldn't die there. Then he disappeared. She opened the diary and read Chuka's last words, "If you're reading this, it means I lost. But Nkem, deep down, I never hated you. I envied your power." She closed it gently, placed it in her safe, and whispered, "You could have built with me. But instead, you broke yourself trying to break me." A red envelope appeared on her desk one morning, no stamp, no handwriting. Inside was a list of names. All judges. All connected to a covert justice club. At the bottom, scribbled in pencil, "They helped cover your father's real will. They are still active. And you're their next target." At a diplomatic brunch, Nkem excused herself after the first sip of tea. Her vision blurred. Her heartbeat raced. A hospital scan confirmed it. Someone had slipped microtraces of mercury into her cup. It was an assassination attempt, subtle but undeniable. Determined to uncover the truth, Nkem pushed for a private tribunal hearing. A special panel convened behind closed doors. No press. Just truth. 3 of the names on the red envelope resigned before the first hearing. 1 judge fled the country. The storm had begun. Just before the second hearing, the National Legal Archives caught fire. 3 floors burned. All files on the 2008 judicial reforms were gone. But 1 flash drive survived, hidden in an intern's locker. It contained emails linking the club to dozens of rigged rulings, dating back 2 decades. Out of nowhere, a new senator approached Nkem. "My father was one of them," he confessed. "But I'm not. I'll help you, but it comes at a price." She agreed, cautiously. With his access, she got names, locations, secret accounts. But she knew better than to trust fully. Everyone had a motive. A fake press leak was arranged, a bogus location of a new hearing. As expected, 3 car bombs were planted at the fake venue the next day. Nkem had predicted it. She watched the blast from a safe distance, her eyes cold. Now we know they are desperate. And desperate men make mistakes. Another shock came from the DNA lab. Ebuka had a half-sibling. A girl. Same father. Chuka. Living in an orphanage in Nairobi under an alias. Nkem traveled quietly and found her, tiny, quiet, with Chuka's intense eyes. She took her hand and said, "Your story won't end like his." Back home, her legal team decrypted Chuka's diary's memory card. Inside, a video. He had recorded himself on the prison's last night. "I was raised in war. I loved her. But pain has no language for love." He paused, then added, "If she forgives me, let my children know they came from fire, but must become light." The president approved one final public hearing, televised, raw, no edits. Nkem stood again, not as a victim, not as a billionaire, but as a witness of history. She exposed names, showed footage, read letters aloud. One line echoed across Nigeria: "Silence helps the powerful. But justice belongs to the brave." The next morning, 12 resignations hit the news. Judges, ministers, even a top general. The government reshuffled. Nkem didn't smile. She simply walked to her balcony, lifted Ibuka and his sister in her arms, and whispered, "This is what it means to win, and still heal." Her memoir was published under the title The Book of Silence. It sold out in 14 countries in 24 hours. But it wasn't the fame that struck Nkem, it was the letters. Thousands of women, from prison cells to palaces, wrote her. Their stories echoed hers: betrayal, survival, and the aching search for dignity. One day, her foundation received 500 million Nigerian nairas from an anonymous donor. No bank trail. No identity. Just a note: "To keep your light burning." Nkem smiled. Whether friend or foe, the message was clear: someone powerful still watched, and perhaps had changed. She visited her hometown for the first time since the wedding. People lined the streets, ululating, throwing flowers, calling her Ada Justice. At the village square, she sat under the old mango tree and told the young girls, "No matter who marries you, never forget who raised you." Late one night, she sat with her late mother's sister and shared everything, even the parts the media didn't know. Poison. Blackmail. Chuka. The woman wept. "Your mother warned us, Nkem. He saw your fire. But we never imagined it would cost you so much to burn." The mysterious hacker, 404, reached out again. This time with an offer: wipe all remaining digital traces of her family's scandal, for a price. Nkem refused. "Let the truth stay where it lives," she said. "Even the ugly parts. Let the future know I fought in full daylight." She visited one of her schools unannounced. A small boy read aloud from her memoir. His voice cracked when he said, "She survived pain and became light." Nkem knelt and hugged him. "You don't need to be rich to be powerful," she whispered. "You only need truth, and the courage to protect it." An old prison guard visited her office. "Chuka was transferred 6 months ago," he whispered. "But not to another jail. To somewhere darker." He slid a flash drive across her desk. On it, a blurry photo. Chuka, gaunt, shackled, alive, and definitely not in a Nigerian prison. The drive held more: a voice note, possibly smuggled from the same location. Chuka's voice: "If I vanish, they'll rewrite my part. But I was used to. Tell her. I never stopped watching." Nkem stared at the screen. So the syndicate hadn't let him die, they had buried him alive. Maybe to silence him forever. With the president's blessing, Nkem launched Nigeria's first-ever joint tribunal with the UN, targeting organized political violence, economic sabotage, and systemic abuse. Over 30 countries pledged support. For the first time in modern African history, one woman's pain had become a global movement. One evening, as the Harmattan wind swept the balcony, Nkem watched Ibuka and his sister playing chess. Her eyes misted. She had no husband. No crown. No father left. But she had peace in her bones, truth in her hands, and 2 hearts calling her Mama. At a UN summit in Geneva, a woman in a black veil slipped a card into Nkem's palm. No words. Just coordinates and a date. The card smelled of old wood. And when she looked up, the woman was gone, like a ghost who had waited years to be seen. Back in Nigeria, Nkem ran the coordinates. They led to an old psychiatric hospital, shut down in 1999 after a mysterious fire. Rumors swirled, it once held political prisoners disguised as patients. Now, it sat in silence, its rusted gates hiding more than memory. Inside the hospital, hidden behind a sealed morgue wall, was a padded room, untouched by time. On the floor, a single metal ID tag. It bore the name, Chuka M., admitted 1993. He had been locked away as a child. Not mad. Not violent. Just inconvenient to someone powerful. Nkem discovered classified foster care reports. Chuka had bounced through 8 homes before age 15. Starved, beaten, drugged. It wasn't just poverty that shaped him, it was systemic cruelty. She sank to her knees. For the first time, she didn't feel anger. She felt sorrow. Her intelligence team revealed a chilling truth: the same cabal that trained Chuka now recruited child prodigies from refugee camps and war zones. They were taught to mimic, manipulate, marry into power. Human weapons, created to destroy nations from within. A journalist sent Nkem one final tip: they are activating 4 new agents across Africa. 1 in Nigeria. Your name's on their list. Nkem tightened security, moved her children off-grid, and called a meeting with global intelligence. This wasn't politics anymore. It was war. She created Project Phoenix, a program to rehabilitate former syndicate agents. Not just to expose them, but to heal them. The pilot case. A 19-year-old girl arrested at Matola Airport. Her fingerprints matched an abandoned file, Chuka's niece. She brought the girl in, sat her down, and said, "I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to rewrite your story." The girl broke down. "I never wanted this life. But they told me you destroyed us." Nkem replied, "No. I survived them. So you could escape." In a coordinated sting, 6 syndicate bases across Africa were raided. 42 arrests. 17 confessions. Billions in blood money frozen. The final domino fell when a dying warlord in Mali confessed, "We built kings from shadows. But she became our son." With the syndicate exposed, Nkem returned to her father's old estate. Overgrown, quiet, and haunting, but still standing. She lit a candle, placed it on the threshold, and whispered, "The curse ends here." Behind her, Ibuka and his sister held hands, eyes wide with hope. An unmarked envelope arrived at her gate, sealed in wax. Inside, a letter handwritten by Chuka, dated the week before his marriage to Nkem. It read, "If I fail, let her know I once dreamed of love, before they broke me." Her hands trembled. The ink was smudged. It had been written through tears. She discovered a secret network of reformed agents, survivors like Chuka who escaped the syndicate. They had lived in hiding, ashamed of their past. Nkem offered them safety. Not as informants, but as healers. Each would mentor one vulnerable youth, break the chain by choosing light. One night, her newest girl's dormitory was set ablaze. It was arson. No injuries, but a message was left in ash: "You took our children. Now we take yours." Nkem stood at the ruins and declared, "You can burn buildings. But you cannot burn belief." That same week, construction of a bigger dome began. Backed by 5 nations, Nkem launched the African Truth Commission, a historic coalition for healing and amnesty. Former warlords, traffickers, agents, even rogue presidents stepped forward. Stories that had been buried for decades now filled stadiums with silence and tears. One face appeared on the final tribunal list: a man who disappeared for 20 years. The real architect of the syndicate. Chuka's grandfather. Old, blind, and unrepentant, he stood before Nkem and spat, "Your love made him weak." She replied, "No. My love made me dangerous." At a private court order, Chuka was released to an international facility for psychological recovery. Nkem didn't block it. She only sent one thing, a letter that read, "I don't forgive you. But I no longer carry you." The message was clear, she had let go of the weight. Nigeria passed the legacy bill, mandating transparency, women's representation, and trauma recovery centers in all federal zones. It was named in her honor, the Nkem Foundation Act. She watched from the gallery with quiet tears. Change, at last, was law. At Ibuka's 13th birthday, she gave a speech, no press, no cameras. Just a mother, kneeling before her children. "I once thought power lived in titles, towers, and threats. But true power is protecting what you love, without becoming what hurt you." She returned to Chuka's holding facility one last time. He was frail. Silent. She said only one thing, "They used us both. But I chose truth. You chose pain." As she turned to leave, he whispered, "Tell them I'm sorry." It was the first honest sentence he'd spoken in 15 years. On the anniversary of her wedding, she walked barefoot to the ocean, her children by her side. The sun rose slowly, golden and endless. She whispered, "This is not how it ends. This is how it begins." And as the waves kissed her feet, the past washed away, forever.